Audiobook presents an unabridged recording of Black Diamond by Martin Walker, narrated by Robert Ian Mackenzie.
Chapter 1. There were not many times that Bruno Courrèges disliked his job, but today was certainly one of them. The weather wasn't to blame, a crisp day in late November with thin, high clouds trailing feebly across a sky that was determined to be blue. And even this early in the morning the sun was warm on his face and lending a rich gold to the few remaining leaves on the line of old oaks that fringed the town's rugby field. It gave warmth to the aged stone of the mairie across the river and to the red tile roofs of the houses that climbed the hillside. The season was still mild enough, he noticed, for the women to have thrown open their windows and the blue wooden shutters. Splashes of white and blue, stripes and floral patterns adorned the townscape where they'd heaped out bedding to air on the balconies, as their mothers and grandmothers had done before them. It might be the last day of the year that would be possible. A touch of frost had silvered the grass outside his cottage when Bruno walked his dog just after dawn that morning, and he'd heard the first of the Christmas muzak in the supermarket over the weekend. Bruno turned back to the scene before him, the small crowd waiting outside the silent sawmill, its chimney no longer sending plumes of smoke into the clear sky. The forklift trucks that usually scurried like beetles around the warehouses under their loads of timber were all parked neatly in their garage. The air still carried the wholesome scent of fresh-cut wood, but the memory would soon fade, since this was the day that the sawmill, one of the biggest and oldest employers in Saint-Denis, was to close its doors. Bruno himself, acting under orders, had 2 weeks earlier delivered the formal notice of closure from the prefecture, citing the legal judgment against Siripon and its owner for breach of the new rules on pollution in urban areas. As the town's only policeman, Bruno had tied a copy of the order, wrapped in plastic against the weather, to the sawmill gates. Now he had to stand watch as the law took its solemn course and the court ruling was carried out. And of course he was obliged to deal with whatever ill feeling followed from this long-running feud between the jubilant Green Party and the man they called the arch-polluter of Saint-Denis. "Pont out! Pont out!" chanted the crowd, led into a chorus by a handsome man with a bullhorn, an expensive leather jacket, and a white silk scarf. His long blonde hair was tucked into a neat ponytail, and he wore a large Green Party button on his lapel. The posters the crowd carried explained the closure. There'd been no economic calamity, no financial embarrassment, no sudden shortage of timber that the woods and forests of the Dordogne region had produced for centuries. There was no shortage of demand for the oak and chestnut, pine and hemlock. Indeed, it was known that Boniface Pont, the owner of the sawmill that had been in his family for generations, was simply shifting his entire enterprise to another commune with wide forests and fewer than 200 voters, where he'd been assured there would be none of the angry demonstrations and the endless lawsuits that had driven him from Saint-Denis. "At last our children can breathe," read one of the posters, which made Bruno roll his eyes at the exaggeration. He'd played countless hours of rugby on the nearby playing field and endured dozens of training sessions while the chimney still spouted and never felt out of breath. "Environment 1, Pont 0, read another poster, which for Bruno was closer to the truth. Pont's sawmill had, over the decade of Bruno's time as the town's policeman, installed 2 separate sets of scrubbing equipment for the steam and smoke that belched from the tall chimney. Each installation was supposed to be the latest in clean air technology, yet within a few years each had been overtaken by new pollution directives from the European Union in Brussels.
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.